Hey everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through an unboxing and review of Studio Series Deluxe Class Offroad Bumblebee, and this is number 57, the Studio Series line, and this particular version of Bumblebee was released back in 2020, which is hard to imagine, but at the same time, release 57, and I think Leader Scourge is 101 in terms of releases, so there you go. So Offroad Bumblebee will pretty much wrap up the unboxing and reviews of the Autobot side of the figures that were released to support Transformers Bumblebee. Now I do have a few Autobots that were opened previously, Prime being one of them. I'm pretty sure I've got the Beetle mode of Bumblebee somewhere, so at some point in time I might retrospectively just do some reviews for those. But once this particular version of Bumblebee is done, it's pretty much switching over into the Decepticon side of things to pretty much wrap that up. And there's a few there, not too many, but I'm hoping that I didn't open the Deluxe Decepticons in the way of Shatter and Dropkick, but time will tell. That's later down the track. Bumblebee. Here we have the front of the box for Offroad Bumblebee, sporting his usual golden yellow colours. Getting used to seeing that head. He has at least one accessory in there and some nice little details throughout. Now, being a 2020 figure release, clear plastic. Lots of it. It's a bit of a novelty at this point in time. Side of the box, 57 Studio Series. The other side of the box as well. Turn to the back, Bumblebee. His alt mode, which will be his Jeep. 26 steps of conversion. The usual backdrop will be included. I think it's the same backdrop that was included with Voyager Blitzwing, given it's the canyon attack, which is where Blitzwing, I do recall, does intercept Bumblebee. Now this will be an interesting figure because I think this was the precursor to Cliffjumper and B127, who were apparently heavy retools of this, so it'll be very interesting to see how the original mold of this goes compared to the retools. Cliffjumper and B127 weren't too bad, but they did have a few interesting bits. Anyway, that is the box side of things done. Time to crack open the box and have a better look at everything that's included. And with everything out of the packaging, we have one accessory for Bumblebee, which is pretty much the same blaster accessory he always gets with almost every incarnation. And this time it's just in the one solid dark color, but we'll have a better look at that in a bit. Bumblebee himself, which is actually feeling quite sturdy, especially after all these years. His manual, which is to be expected, and off camera right now is his backdrop. So, before we get too involved, very, very basic shot of Bumblebee against his backdrop. Definitely not too bad looking. He does stand out quite nicely, and I will do some pictures of Bumblebee against his backdrop, probably for the community post as the preview for this video, which by the time this video comes out, you'll know if that was the case or not. So that's Bumblebee in front of his backdrop. And hopefully we will look at that backdrop again once he's in his vehicle mode. So, manual. Standard manual. Now, even though he's the precursor to Cliffjumper and B127, I'm not expecting the transformation process to be the same, but I do expect there to be some similarities. So, first 8 steps basically looks like it's just playing with his arms, with 9 through to 15 his torso and his legs. Back in the days when we had previews of the upcoming figures, so Roadbuster and Shatter. and then the rest of the steps on the back. So definitely not too bad. We do have some weapon storage in his alt mode, which is very nice, just like we do in his robot mode, as well as how to equip it. And I can also see it looks like we should have some tabbing as well. So should be overall a very fun transformation process once the time comes. Accessory, we won't spend too much time on this because we actually have seen it a few times. So apparently it will store on his back. Please don't tell me it stores through that. Or am I doing it the wrong way? I always get confused. Okay. I'm clearly butchering this. Okay, there we go. Yes, it is some of that weird tabbing on the large tab of the weapon. Doesn't feel like it's the most sturdy, but it is what it is. So that's to store it, and then to equip it. It's only the one way to equip it, and that'll pretty much go onto his hand like so. And I will admit, it is one of the few weapons, just put this away, where it actually does look really nice once it's equipped, because it looks quite seamless. So, Bumblebee. We'll keep your accessory attached on because I think for the intro, it's not going to prove too troublesome. So, Bumblebee from the front, the side, the back, the other side, top down, bottom up. Surprisingly, very solid feet. Will you stand on your own 2 feet? Yes, you will. Before we get too carried away, a nice close-up of the detailing on his head and his torso. Not too bad. And he will have an Autobot insignia on his forehead as well. So I mentioned his color palette earlier while he was still in the box, so that standard golden yellow. We do have this dark grey graphite throughout his body. We do have some of this metallic look as well, just to give an added layer of color and detailing. And pretty much about it in terms of main colors. He does also have this silver on his head as well, with a bit of blue for his eyes. So definitely a very typical Bumblebee palette. And overall, that actually does work quite well. The extra bits of color that he has splashed all over the place just does help make him quite pleasing to the eye. Now, before I get too involved, back kibble, it exists, but it's relatively flush. So with the exception of the steering wheel, which probably can actually go in there to be a little less obnoxious, this all neatly flushes against his back, so whilst it exists, it's definitely not that bad. Probably a lot better than his successors in terms of the mold. Okay, colors we've looked at. We've had a quick informal 360 articulation. So Bumblebee, your head can do pretty much do a 360 at the neck. You also have a good amount of head tilt, which is very good. Obviously, there's probably a bit of an extreme with your head tilt, but it is there nonetheless. As for your arms, now you will not be able to do a full 360 around the shoulder socket because your Jeep tires have very much created very imposing shoulders, at least for movement. So arm will go all the way just past vertical top, and we'll go that far back. So do have a bit of lost motion there, but at the same time, how often do you do full 360s at your arms? But there you go. The arm can still go all the way out though, which is good. It can still go all the way out to the front as well, thanks to this little ball socket there. That's the shoulder. In terms of the elbow, looks like we have your standard, or just a touch more than 90-degree elbow. You can also probably go about 45-degree backwards, which isn't too bad. You will also have some rotation here at the upper arm as well, so that is always a good thing. Now, okay, for a minute there I thought it was going to be a double shoulder, but it's a bit deceptive with its look. There you go. You do have that much movement there in the elbow. Wrists are pretty much fixed, which is okay. You'd expect that. In terms of your waist, you do have a little bit of swivel, not too much because of, once again, your back bit's getting in the way, although if I reposition the steering wheel, to be honest, it's done no real major change, so it's, yeah, pretty much a bit to Bumblebee's right, a bit to the left. Definitely not too bad for some dynamic posing in the sense that at least you can swivel somewhat to the side, which is good, as opposed to staying dead straight. So that's definitely not a bad thing. In terms of the legs, you will not get a full 90-degree to the side split, but you will still be able to move the leg all the way to the front. I can pretty much go all the way to the back. This is also me doing a bit of a bend at the knee as well, but that's not too bad. But you can do some rotation there at the hip joint as well, and in fact if you do that you can pretty much get more of the splits, albeit it's not going to be a full proper split, but that's okay. So that's that. The knee, standard knee bend, nothing too over glamorous. Is there any rotation up here? Let's find out. No, there is not. Now it is nice because I think I do remember from B127, at least these little side bits do seem to be a bit more secure than what they were on B127. If I remember correctly, I had issues trying to figure out where to put them. So hips we've looked at, upper leg, knee. In terms of the feet, we do have a full 360 rotation there because the feet are on a wall socket. Very, very nice. So we will be able to do some nice little feet posing there when the time comes. So that is very cool. Just see if I can clean up Bumblebee a little bit. So that is a run through of the general articulation that Bumblebee will possess in his robot mode. So time to transform Bumblebee into his off-road Jeep, have a quick look at that, and then have some final thoughts. And with Bumblebee now in his off-road Jeep mode. So a quick look at the Jeep. Now, being the first time transformation, I probably have not fully aligned things properly, so some things have not tabbed as neatly as they could. But here's a shot of Bumblebee from the front, the side, the back, the other side, bit of a top down, bottom up, which is a touch on the messy side, and just a bit of a quick close-up on the front of his vehicle mode. Oddly enough, I'm surprised that they never did a redeck over this and made a swindle out of it. So in terms of his general look, definitely not too bad. He does very much look like your traditional army style off-road Jeep. Colors are very nice, so they're not too overly weird looking actually. So all the colors seem quite natural, intuitive. So most of the chassis is that golden yellow, and then we have that dark grey / graphite through the interior just to add some of that detailing, spare tire, some of this extra stuff on the back of the Jeep. main wheels, and then the front. So overall, it's actually not too bad. I actually quite like the look. Definitely very aesthetically pleasing. Now, in terms of its transformation, before I get in transformation, articulation wise, it's pretty much just the wheels. Yes, they're all independent, and surprisingly, Bumblebee actually can move forwards and backwards on those wheels quite nicely, despite the fact that his forearms do look like they stick out a little bit, but not as bad as they appear to. It's not too bad. As for transformation actually wasn't too bad. I actually quite enjoyed it more than I did Cliff Jumper and B127. There are some things that I will admit did feel somewhat familiar, and I dare say that's to be expected. I think once some of the things are starting to tab together, and you'll probably notice it's because some of the things don't look perfectly flush, subject to how all things tab together will probably start to influence how everything else will go down the track. So there is some nice tabbing, apparently, at the front for the front of the Jeep and the top panel. It's a good amount of tabbing for the feet and the legs here as well, which I think this part is actually quite solid. We do have some tabbing back here for the side panels, which I think do pop out a little bit. Once again, it could just be because I don't have the top of the legs nice and aligned. I think they are slightly off center. We do have some tabbing for the arms here as well that go into the side. I do remember that from B127 and Cliff Jumper. But the tabbing here isn't as great, but I guess that's okay. If you don't hold it by the arms, it's not too bad. But overall, transformation actually wasn't too bad at all. And it definitely didn't take as long as I thought it would. So I think that's a testament to prior experience and to just doing everything one step at a time. So definitely not a bad looking alt mode. Now I do know there's the Nest recolor of Offroad Bumblebee, and I don't know, if I actually see one, I'm just tempted to get one just so I can actually have one in his robot mode, which will probably be this one, and if I do get the Nest recolor, maybe keep the Nest one in the vehicle mode. It actually is quite nice. Now, I didn't mention it earlier, but the weapon does store away quite nicely in between the legs. There is some little tabbing that the side of the weapon can actually just tab neatly into, and it's relatively secure, so that is very, very nice. So definitely overall, not a bad looking alt mode. Comes together generally quite nicely. Hopefully in future transformations I will neaten up some of this tabbing. But overall, I quite like it. So that is Bumblebee's alt mode. Final thoughts. In terms of the robot mode, as the initial mold, I thought it was definitely well suited for this mold. Everything's well proportioned, everything looks good. Even in robot mode, everything seems nice and flush to the body, such as the back and some of the panels on the side of the legs. I think my only grievance is that his shoulders have lost a bit of articulation because of the wheels. I think at the end of the day, it's probably relatively minor, because for the most part you still have the side and the front arcs readily available, so I don't think it's a real impact on posing, unless for whatever reason you want to put his arms to the back. Hips and knees seem pretty okay, so I think overall, with the exception of the shoulders, I feel he'll have a very solid amount of articulation. So I'd say overall, robot mode is actually pretty good. I feel much more comfortable with his robot mode than Cliff Jumper and B127. I'm glad they did the retooling, but maybe retooling this was not the best idea. As for the vehicle mode, it does look very nice. I think it actually looks probably quite realistic with its look and how the colors are spread out. Nothing looks overly weird, and we don't have this ridiculous concept of a weird weapon sticking out of nowhere. So definitely overall, that's really nice. Could it do with a bit more detailing and colors? Probably. But for its base version, really good. Transformation definitely wasn't too bad. It does have tabbing where it needs to have tabbing, so it has the potential to be nice and solid. And I think it's just been a case of first time transformation, trying to get used to it. Probably haven't aligned a few things as neatly and flush as possible. But it definitely didn't take too long compared to at least my very first time of Big 127. I think that took me a while. Thank goodness I recorded it off camera. But Offroad Bumblebee has actually been a bit of a pleasant figure to transform into his Ultimo. So overall, this is actually a very solid version of Bumblebee. Now, having done Studio Series 100, which was also Bumblebee, and I believe it was his Dark of the Moon version. Now that was a very solid Bumblebee, so it's nice that as time has gone on, Bumblebees have become more sturdy, with the exception of B127. But then he was a recolor of Cliffjumper. Cliffjumper was a heavy redeco and retool of this, so subject to debate about evolution. But I think this version of Bumblebee is done really, really well in terms of presentation, transformation, and things like that. So I would definitely say if you never got him initially being 2020, and you can see the Nest recolor, I would actually say grab it. And I'm almost dared to say that the Nest recolor may look even better because it's more of the cold grey silver colors as opposed to golden yellow. Although to be honest, golden yellow is not exactly uncommon either, so either way, I think color-wise you're okay. It may suit the theme a lot better in the Nest colors, but subject to personal perspective. But if you were to find an Offroad Bumblebee, I would definitely say I think you'd be well placed to have a bit of enjoyment out of him. If you're a big Bumblebee fan, you'll probably have one or want to get one. And obviously, wrapping up the Transformers Bumblebee figure collection, I'd say he's a very welcome addition to it. So overall, Offroad Bumblebee, I would say, very solid acquisition and nice to have in the collection. So that will bring us to the end of the unboxing and review of Studio Series Deluxe class Offroad Bumblebee. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this will be the last unboxing of a Autobot from Transformers Bumblebee. In time, I'll hopefully do some posthumous reviews of Optimus Prime, potentially Bumblebee in his Beetle mode, if I can find him. And as of next week, we'll start spilling over into the Decepticons of the Transformers Bumblebee movie. I've already done Blitzwing, so next week, I think at this point in time I have Starscream and Soundwave on hand. Leaning towards Soundwave. We'll see. Just because I'm still a bit irritable from Blitzwing, so even more scared about touching Starscream, or Thundercracker for that matter. So we'll see how things go. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video. Feel free to leave a like or comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account. Link to that is in the description below. There will also be some parallel shorts and hopefully some extra content on the community post tab. With that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in, hopefully, next Friday's Transformers video. Otherwise, there's plenty of Transformers content going up through Rise of the Beasts. Otherwise, there's still the other contents on the channel as well. See ya.